Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us with Kyle Petty from Ohio Business for Immigrant Solutions. I'm going to do a quick intro and then I'm going to let Kyle take it away. Kyle has spent over a decade developing strong relationships with the Ohio General Assembly, numerous government agencies, and stakeholder groups across the state. These relationships, paired with his intricate knowledge of state government, allow him to offer a high level of advocacy for the clients of CHW Advisors. Kyle began his career in the Ohio Senate, where he performed a variety of roles. He started out as a Senate page, the lowest paid position at the Ohio Senate. Next, he was promoted to administrative assistant to the majority floor leader of the Ohio Senate. He then became a legislative aide and served as clerk for the chairman of the Senate Ways and Means Committee. Kyle left the Ohio Senate to serve as legislative director for the Department of Youth Services. Following that, he served as legislative director for the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. There, he worked collaboratively with the Ohio General Assembly and numerous stakeholders to pass significant criminal justice reforms, as well as a $2 billion a year operating budget for the agency. Also, Kyle regularly worked with ODRC's procurement and fiscal staff and publicly advocated for its expenditures before the Ohio Controlling Board. Kyle served in Governor John Kasich's administration as legislative liaison. There, he was responsible for coordinating the legislative efforts of numerous state agencies, such as the Ohio Department of Public Safety, Department of Veterans Services, and the Ohio Adjunct General Department. Excuse me while I trip over that one. In addition to his government affairs experience, Kyle is also a practicing attorney. He is a founding partner of the Petty Devlin Law Group, LLC. The areas of practice for his firm include estate planning, contract law, employment law, family law, and personal injury. Kyle graduated magna cum laude from Capital University, as well as graduating magna cum laude from Capital University Law School. Everybody, welcome Kyle Petty.
Well, thanks, Rachel. I appreciate that introduction, that nice little trip around memory lane there. That was great. I have a quick little PowerPoint here for everybody to talk about Ohio Business for Immigration Solutions. So I will share my screen here really quickly. All right. Okay. So as Rachel mentioned, I'm here to talk to you guys about Ohio Business for Immigration Solutions. But before I get started, I just want to first commend you, Rachel, for hosting this event and putting it together, and really just for your engagement. You and Cindy as well. You guys have been great partners with our coalition, and we look forward to working together on immigration issues in the future, because we're here to talk about workforce mainly. Immigration reform is kind of the vessel for that, but really we're here to hopefully address some workforce issues that we've seen are rampant around the state of Ohio. So that's really what kind of drives our coalition, and like I said, look forward to working with you guys to try to find some common sense solutions to that. So who we are. So Ohio Business for Immigration Solutions, or OBIS, as we like to call ourselves for short, because that is a long title. We are a coalition, a statewide coalition of leaders of now over 75 members, which is really incredible, I think, given the fact that we were only just over a year old. So we've grown over 300% during the last year. And we think that really is, really shows that Ohio is really committed to trying to find solutions to the workforce crisis through immigration reform. Our coalition is very diverse, both in terms of where our members are geographically located, but also where our different trades and associations our members represent. So as you can see in the slide, we have individual businesses, we have trade associations, chambers of commerce, and economic development groups. The chambers of commerce really are our backbone of our coalition. So about half of our membership is chambers of commerce. So we obviously love the chambers. You guys are great, and really been really great partners with us. Our coalition has kind of developed over this last almost a year and a half now. So really our mission as OBIS is we're looking to strengthen the economy, attract and retain global talent, and bring new business to the state through common sense immigration reform. So, I'll go a little bit about how we go about doing that. So we are really the only statewide business coalition that really represents only businesses, that talks about common sense solutions to immigration policies through the workforce lens. So we've heard from folks throughout the last year, and it doesn't matter what part of Ohio you go, what sector you're talking to in terms of the economy, everybody is struggling to find workers. And so I think folks are at the point now where they will take, anybody that they can to fill some of these job openings. And, we believe, and our members believe, that immigrants, coming through a legal process can fill some of those gaps. The problem is that the immigration system is very antiquated, it's very bureaucratic, and it honestly does not work right now for Ohio's business owners. So our coalition is trying to find a way to work with policymakers, really all levels of government, and really we advocate and tell our story. And it's really not my story per se, but it's actually the individual business owners and the chambers of commerce that tell their stories. So I've worked in the political realm for my whole entire career, as Rachel alluded to, in a various different capacities. And I will just tell you that what moves the needle for politicians is not me up here blabbing about immigration reform and these ideological principles. It's the boots on the ground stories. It's the contractor that can't fulfill a job that the contract they've won because they can't find workers. It's the business owner that buys equipment and is ready to receive an immigrant worker, then they get denied at the last minute because they don't know where their visa application's at in the process, because it's all an antiquated system, it's not online. And so those are the things that we kind of work on. So one of the I think the great benefits of being an OBIS member is our partnership with a group called the American Immigration Council. And so they work with us and they share our same goals and values, and that they do believe that immigration reform is a workforce issue. And they really support our mission and our coalition mission and vision in doing that. However, unlike they don't tell stories, they do their stories through data. And so they have, and I'm not even trying to exaggerate this, some of the most comprehensive and really illuminating data sets I've seen on this issue. So they go through and look at various, sets of data, such as census data and things like that, to look at the economic impact of immigrants, not only in Ohio, but they can actually drill down to certain communities. They can break the data down by congressional district, and they can do a really lot of neat things to really show that, not only do we need additional immigrants to come in here and to fill job openings, but immigrants right now, present day, are here in Ohio. And not only are they here, but they're contributing to our economy in a variety of ways. So as you can see here from this slide, this is just an Ohio-wide snapshot. We're hoping to work with Rachel to do one that's more localized to your area, so you can kind of get a more of a drilled down impact on where immigrants are at in your area and what they're doing. So this kind of talks as high level about the share of the population, number of residents, taxes paid, and that's all great. Immigrant entrepreneurs, I think, is a really interesting statistic, because the data shows that immigrants, I think, are twice as likely to come over to the United States and start a new business as opposed to a Native American. So, they come over here, and particularly for the chambers, I tell them that because these could be potential members at some point. These immigrants are very entrepreneurial when they come over here, and that's just a great thing to have. But one of the neat things we also have through New American Economy is they can break down into what job sectors immigrants are contributing. So it's kind of an interesting breakdown when you look at it. They do a lot of the manual labor, so they do a lot of agriculture here in Ohio, but they also do a lot of high skill jobs as well. So immigrants right now, over 1 in 4 doctors in the state is an immigrant currently. So obviously, healthcare has been a very important issue the last couple of years. And so, we look at the immigration as a way to kind of help solve that issue. Nursing right now is the number 1 profession in demand, according to Jobs Ohio, and Ohio means jobs. And so we looked at, immigrants could also come in and fill those roles as well, too. But as I mentioned before, the system just doesn't really allow for that right now, which is a real shame, given the fact that a lot of our businesses are struggling. They're trying to rebuild after the pandemic, and they just can't do that because they can't find workers. So this isn't, immigrants could hopefully be another pool of workers for that. So as I mentioned before, it's just kind of some of the different data that talks about, where the immigrants are at. And they also kind of talk about their taxing and spending power. We found that to be kind of fascinating too, because obviously it shows they're actually here contributing to society. They're not simply just coming over and using resources. They're actually putting back into the system and contributing. So, they really want to try to be a part of society. And as you can see from the left column here, they actually contribute in a really variety of professions. And so you got to understand that immigrants in Ohio only make up, I think, just over just under 5% of the population, but they account for, a lot of the animal production, aquaculture jobs, travel accommodation, computer system design, related services. Obviously, that's very important now after our state received the Intel announcement. So that's something we're kind of monitoring and tracking as well as that kind of moves forward. So yes, let's get to our what do we do exactly, right? As Rachel and Cindy can attest to, we're a very active coalition. And one of the things that I think we're really proud of is that we are a member-driven coalition. So we only work on policies that our members bring to us and that our members tell us are important to Ohio's business community. And so when we started a coalition over a year ago, we surveyed our members and said, hey, where are your pressure points in the immigration system? What issues aren't working well for you? And they all came back unanimously with three main policy priorities. So the first one was reforming the green card system to meet the needs of Ohio's business community, then to support key workforce-related changes to the visa program, and then three, state level occupational licensing reform to alleviate workforce gaps in demand sectors. So the first two are primarily federal. So we engage regularly with Ohio's congressional delegation to work on those two issues. And the third one is something that we're particularly focused on this year. So occupational licensing is a state issue. So it's something that we worked on with the Ohio General Assembly here. And it's really been fascinating to kind of see how, different boards and commissions in Ohio treat immigrants. So, technically there is a citizenship requirement, but, there are some people that are over here legally, and other states have done this too, where, if you're over here on a visa, so you're technically over here legally, but you're not a citizen, we were trying to see if it's possible to allow you to have an occupational license. It's for nursing, for example. If you're over here on a visa, you're in school or something like that, obviously we need jobs right now. We need people to fill these gaps. And so we're trying to see if the licensure can be changed to accommodate that and really fill some in-demand jobs we're looking at. So those are our three main policy priorities. And so I think this is also important because I think this is a really, particularly for the chambers, I find this very interesting. So we track a lot of federal legislation that kind of either relates or encapsulates our policy priorities. And so we just try to provide updates on, where the bill is, if a new bill is introduced, just to kind of show, here's what's going on at the federal level. Because as many people who work in Congress can attest to, it can be a bit of a bear to get your arms around at first. And so we try to make that very easy for folks to understand and see what's going on. And we're really pleased that there's actually legislation that encapsulates our policy priorities. So all three of these bills here on the screen, to some extent, have our policy priorities in them. And they do it in different ways, which I think is just really fascinating. So the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, obviously agriculture is a big industry, in the Sandusky area. And so, we would track that bill for a lot of our seasonal workers that come in. And this bill, I think, is very interesting because I think this has the model of what we want to look at when we talk about, streamlining the visa process. So this bill basically allows you to have a online database for your visa application, and you can submit applications through a single portal without having to do it through three separate federal agencies, which is the process right now. So it's very clunky right now. It's not very transparent. So this portal kind of streamlines it, lets one application cover multiple workers. So if you're a large user of the program, you're not spending, an exorbitant amount of legal fees, as my profession likes to do, is the nickel and dime folks. So we try to make sure that kind of helps, reduce some of the cost and also reduces the efficiency of the program, we hope. So that's kind of an interesting bill to track and a really interesting approach to reforming the visa program. The second one is H2B, which is like a seasonal worker as well, but it's not agriculture related. So a lot of these folks that come into Ohio do a lot of landscaping work. And so this one's interesting. Actually, one of the main sponsors of this is Dave Joyce from Northeast Ohio here in Ohio. And so we work with his office, pretty regularly on this bill to kind of see, if there's ways we can help and support him. But there is a statutory cap on the number of visas that is allowed each year. And so for some reason, that number is then split into two. So you have half the visas are awarded in the first half of the year and the second half are awarded in the second half of the year. And so, as you can imagine, we're not doing a lot of landscaping in Ohio in the first part of the year, as much as we all wish that was the case. So a lot of our visas come in the second half of the year. And so it doesn't really work right now for Ohio business owners because they're kind of put in picking at in a half visa allocation. They're competing with everybody else across the nation for that. So it really puts them at an advantage. So what this bill does is it says, hey, if there's a worker you've had through the system for, I think a certain period of time, we know who that person is. So they can kind of get, how I coined it, an express lane into the country through the visa program, because we know who they are. The business knows who they are. They've been here for 3 or 5 years or something like that, and so they're a good worker, and we want to make sure they can get back there, really to help contribute to Ohio's economy. So that streamlines that process as well, but it also exempts those folks from the statutory cap. So it artificially raises the cap, and not only does it allow let's say more specialized or more seasoned workers to come in, but also allows more workers to come in and take advantage of the program, which is really helpful for Ohio's businesses. Because we've seen in Ohio, our H2B denial rate has increased dramatically since 2019, I believe. So it's really hurting Ohio's business, and we're trying to work to change that. And the last one was recently introduced. And so, President Biden, when he came in, he had a whole slew of immigration reforms that he thought were policy priorities for him. And then this vehicle right here is kind of the Republican counter proposal to that. So it does contain a lot of our policy priorities. There is a lot of provisions in there about border security and things like that. That is really kind of outside the scope of our coalition. So, kind of this summary, I want to talk about some of the things that it does. So it does create a legal pathway to citizenship for undocumented workers. It's like a 5 to 10 year program that they pay fees and things like that. And the fees that they pay actually go into a fund to retrain or train American workers to fill in demand jobs as well. So it's kind of going back to that principle I've talked about a couple of times, where immigrants really want to give back, they want to contribute. And this bill kind of provides a process to kind of streamline that, and funnel that money to help retrain American workers, which we think is important as well. And actually, the Dignity Act incorporates the H2B Returning Worker Exception Act too, which is also fascinating. And then it also works on the H2a program. So the H2a program, these definitions, antiquated is a word I use very frequently with the immigration system. And this is a great example of it. So H2a is purely for agriculture. So you take someone who works on a fruit farm in Ohio, for example, they can pick the fruit off the truck because that is an agricultural activity. They can't load it on the truck or drive the truck to somewhere else to deliver the fruit. That's on agricultural activity. So this program expands definition to really show that, farming is a very holistic industry, and there's, a lot of roles these immigrants can play in that industry, and they shouldn't be limited by some, antiquated statute. So those are some of the pending legislation we work on. And we track for folks. We try to send out a monthly update to our members to kind of say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's a new bill that's introduced. You want to look at it. If you're interested, let us know. We'd be happy to track things for you. And we really think that's a good service we offer to our membership. So it brings me to membership and why we're here today. So, we are always looking for new members. And we do that because I believe the more stories we have, the more life experience we have through, a variety of members in our coalition makes us stronger. That we've learned about different immigration issues and different pressure points for different businesses every day. And it's truly been an eye-opening experience to see how passionate folks are about this and how they really are hurting and looking for workers to fill jobs, but also just how complex the immigration system is and how many problems there are with it. So we really need your membership, particularly in the manufacturing sector, anybody that uses high-skilled workers, the healthcare sector, the tech sector, any of those industries. We're really looking for folks to kind of come in and talk to us about that. And we really do think we provide a tremendous value for members. So as I mentioned, we send, monthly updates. We have a quarterly meeting every quarter that we try to bring in a speaker that kind of talks on, relevant immigration topics. So we've had refugee coordinators come in when we were dealing with all the Afghan refugees that are coming to Ohio. We've had a roundtable discussion with Congressman Anthony Gonzalez in one of our meetings. And, we also really focus on our congressional meetings too. And I think they're very fascinating because I don't talk during the meetings, which, as people can probably allude to, is a good thing sometimes. they're all member led. And that's what's so neat is we let our members talk about our policy priorities. They let them talk about, how they impact their business. And it's been a really well received thing on both for our members and for the members of Congress. We've had a lot of direct connections to from our membership to members of Congress that are working on bills with Senator Portman's office dealing with the H2b program, and then also with Congressman Joyce's office with his work in the subject. And it's really been a great way to showcase, our members do care about this. More importantly, the business committee cares about this because immigration is not a border issue all the time. It's most of the time it's a workforce issue. And that's what we try to work on. And that's our main goal. So if you have a workforce issue and you're looking for workers, join us, talk to us. We're happy to hear your story and see if there's a way you can get involved with our coalition. Hopefully we can help you, fill some of those jobs you're trying to fill. And hopefully we can all kind of raise Ohio's economy and get back to track and grow our population so we don't lose a congressional seat in the next census. That would be really great. So yeah, that's a little bit about OBIS here. And obviously, if you're more interested in learning about the coalition, please feel free to visit our website at ohcompact.org. And then if you're interested, here's the contact information for myself and Madison, who also works with me in this coalition of the CHW. And with that, I will take a break here. And if there's any questions, be happy to answer those at this time. Did I put everybody to sleep already in the morning?
So I have a question. So you talked a little bit about, obviously hiring someone who is an immigrant. So, I'm an Ohio company. Granted, I don't have maybe manual labor type of work, but maybe office work, something like that. Just for example, I call you to help me find these folks. What is my avenue? Where do I go to find workers to fill these positions?
Sure. So I wish I could help with that. And I think that really speaks to why the system needs to be changed, right? Because, the average business owner, from what we've been told, really can't access the immigration system to find workers because of the complexity of it and the fact that you literally have to have an immigration attorney fill out the paperwork and go through the process, which, selfishly being an attorney, that makes sense. But at the same time, as a business owner, I can see that's very frustrating. And I think that's, one of the reasons why we need to change the system. The average business, Ohio is built on small business. That always has been, always will be. And, if those folks can't find workers for native Ohioans, they need to have access to other pools of workers. And so we're trying to make some common sense changes to immigration reform to kind of help, allow them to have access to that system. I mentioned a couple of those bills talked about streamlining the visa process. Right now, I kind of glossed over it, but right now you have to post a job, in various news outlets for a couple of weeks to certify that you can't find a native Ohioan to fill the job. Either certify that with the Department of Labor. Once that's done, then you've got to go and walk over to, the Department of Homeland Security. Then you've got to go through the background check process. Then you got to then go through the U.S. consulate in a native country to get the worker in, to interview them, to then bring them over here. As you can imagine, that's not a very quick process or a very, accessible process for average small business owner. And so, I think those are the things we're trying to work on in terms of streamlining. And, I think that's something that we need more stories like that, quite frankly, Cindy. I think the folks that would otherwise, want to use immigrant workers to fill some of these jobs, but they just can't, do that through the access issues.
No, that's a really good point. I feel like that. And, and even, some of the like farmhands and things like that, it's not like folks that are looking for those positions are on Indeed or anything like that. So I feel like, yeah, there's, bridging that gap, the need and filling the need with those folks. I think it's a huge thing. And, we certainly applaud what you're doing in really raising the awareness and letting us be a part of that. So we're really excited about that. Thank you, Kyle.
The feeling's mutual, believe me.
Does anybody else have any questions for Kyle? Ella, I saw you just jumped in. I'll be sending the recording and the slides later, so you didn't miss anything. You can just watch it later.
I have a question. If we want to try to get actively involved in helping with immigration reform, like what's the best way to start that? Or how do we become influential? Or what are some steps that we can do as just, regular American people to try and, help with some of these policy changes and that kind of thing?
Sure, and that's a good question. It really brings up a point that you'd think after I've done this presentation a couple of times, I would mention this because I think it's one of the main benefits of our coalition and joining our coalition. It is completely 100% free to join. So we try to make the barriers to entry very small for folks. But so I would say, I would encourage you to join the coalition, just selfishly, but I think we all do offer a lot of really good insight. And so, as I mentioned before, and Rachel mentioned through my bio, we have a pretty deep background in, policy and lobbying and advocacy work. And so one of the things we can do is we can help connect you with your member of Congress. We really work with our congressional delegation very frequently. And so we can we do these roundtable discussions where it kind of helps you raise awareness and talk directly to your legislator. And really tell your story about, if you're having workforce issues, what part of the immigration system, doesn't work for you. But just generally speaking, if you're outside of the coalition work, I would always say to tell people to vote. Just selfishly, I think that's the best thing to do is to vote and be engaged in the civic process. But, I do think like writing your member of Congress and, attending events they go to and host and talk about this stuff. Because I think, Cindy's point, I think, is well taken that, one of our main jobs in the coalition is to help raise awareness of the issue. I think folks are struggling to find workers. We've heard that from, all of our members. But I think, to your point, Lynette, I don't think people really understand how to get involved because the immigration system is very complex. But, dealing with, Congress and national policy and politics, that's a whole other animal in general. So, I would just say, working for a legislator, they do read the letters that people write to them. That they do interact with constituents, particularly now that it's an election year. They're a lot more sensitive, than I might be in other years. So I would just say, to keep the line of communication open, because as I mentioned before, the personal stories are really moving to folks, particularly if you're a constituent. These members of Congress are members of the community as well, too. They know the folks that own the businesses, they know the folks that, work and do those kind of things. And I think if they hear from you and say, hey, I have this issue, they're going to listen. So our coalition kind of helps connect you at, I guess, maybe a higher level, but there's plenty of work and, things you can do at the grassroots, at the citizenship level, to stay involved. And I think that's an excellent thing. I'm really happy that you brought that up and you're interested in doing that, because I think people don't really do that as much as they should.
I'm going to kind of piggyback on that for those of you who are local. If you haven't seen, we are going to do a couple of town halls throughout the county coming up, and Representative Click and Senator Reinecke have been invited to those, along with Louanne Cook from the Lieutenant Governor's office. So if you want to get in front and have some face time with the state legislators, that's all listed on our website, and I can get anybody information on how to register for those if you are not a member and you haven't seen those.
That's awesome. Those are good folks too. Representative Click and Senator Reinecke could do a good job for the area, so that'll be good.
All right, does anybody else have any questions for Kyle? All right, if not, just another quick update. The town halls are coming up. There's one in Clyde, one in Fremont, and then Gibsonburg and Woodville are going to partner up and do one together. At each one of those town halls, you'll have Clyde city officials, you'll have Fremont city officials, and then in Gibsonburg and Woodville, you'll have those village officials. On Monday, April 4th, we have our next Mastering Monday, which is an active shooter training with Chris Shea from Trident Security Solutions. That is an in-person only event. Chris and I don't know about anybody else. I have been through active shooter training, and it is much more effective in person than it is virtual. So that will be held here pending attendance. If we have too many that we can't fit in our conference room here, we will be moving that location, and obviously we'll fill you in on that. And then on Thursday, April 7th, we are running with scissors. The Sandusky County Economic Development, Sandusky County Visitors Bureau, and here at the Chamber, within the last year, we have either moved or remodeled. So we are going to run with scissors and have open houses for all three organizations. At 1 o'clock is the ribbon cutting for Economic Development. At 2 o'clock is the ribbon cutting for the Visitors Bureau. And then at 3 o'clock is the ribbon cutting for the Chamber. From 1 to 3, Economic Development and Visitors Bureau will be having an open house. And then from 3 to 4:30, we will be having our open house. So feel free to join us on those. You can't come in person. You can always catch us streaming live on Facebook if you follow Sandusky County Chamber. And with that, Diana jumped off already. I was going to tell everybody to have a great Friday. So we will see you guys later. And if you need anything from me, or if you need some more information from Kyle, I've got his contact information, and we'll be sending the slides and the recording after we're done. So have a great day, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.